Before there were wars, before there were armies, even before there were weapons, there was a single, pivotal moment, a moment when cooperation, the very thing that kept our ancestors alive, shattered. Imagine early humans huddled together, surviving not because they were the strongest, but because they were the smartest. They shared food, protected each other from predators, and found warmth in their numbers. This was the blueprint for survival. Stick together, work together, light together. But survival isn't a gentle force. It's a relentless pressure cooker of hunger, fear, and the constant, knowing anxiety of what tomorrow might bring. What happens when the rains don't come and the fruit trees are bare? What happens when the safest cave is already occupied? Slowly, quietly, the threads of trust that held these groups together began to fray. Tension, once a foreign concept, started to simmer just beneath the surface. It wasn't a grand declaration of war. It was a silent, creeping uniase. Then, one day, the dam broke. At some point, words were not enough. A gesture was missing. A desperate glance was seen as a threat. And it happened. The first fight. This wasn't a battle for power, territory, or glory. There were no kings or countries. It was raw, primal, and stripped down to its very essence. Survival. Two hands reaching for the last piece of roasted meat. Two bodies lunging for the only dry spot in a storm-swept shelter. It was a desperate clash of two individuals who both wanted the same thing: to see the next sunrise. The first blow wasn't driven by malice, but by instinct. A push, a shove, a frantic struggle. In that moment, something new was born into the human experience. Violence wasn't a concept they understood. It was a physical answer to an impossible question. How do I survive when there isn't enough for both of us? That single, desperate act sent ripples through the course of human history, changing our behavior forever. Suddenly, there was fear, not just of the saber-toothed cat, but of each other. This act of conflict introduced boundaries where there were none. It created a pecking order, a hierarchy. The strongest, or perhaps just the most desperate, now had an advantage. It forced a complete rewiring of social dynamics. Leaders didn't emerge from wisdom alone anymore. They emerged from the ability to protect, to control, to fight. Groups had to learn not just how to hunt together, but how to defend themselves from other groups. From that first, tragic confrontation, conflict became an undeniable part of the human story. It's a dark chapter, but it's crucial to understand. It wasn't born from an inherent evil within us. It was born from the brutal, unforgiving mathematics of survival. It was born from difficult choices made by desperate people in a world that offered no guarantees. Understanding this origin, this first break in our shared humanity, is the key to understanding everything that came after the good, the bad, and the complex tapestry of human history. If you found this journey into our distant past as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into what makes us human. See you in the next one. The first topic is life before conflict. Have you ever wondered when humans first started fighting each other? It's a dark question, but the answer reveals something incredible about our past. Before the first war, before the first weapon was raised against another person, human life was built on something entirely different. Cooperation. Imagine a world without armies, without kings, without borders. This was a world of our earliest ancestors. They weren't warriors, they were survivors. Living in small, tight-knit groups, they relied on each other for absolutely everything. Finding food, raising children, and simply making it through another day in a harsh, unforgiving environment. Think about it. Alone, a single human was incredibly vulnerable, a target for predators, unable to hunt large game or defend against the elements. But together, they were a force. They could coordinate, strategize, and protect one another. Cooperation wasn't a choice. It was the only way to survive. In these early societies, food wasn't hoarded, it was sarid. A successful hunt meant everyone ate. Fire, the precious source of warmth and safety, wasn't owned by one person. It was protected by the group. When danger appeared, like a stalking predator, they faced it as one. This unity was their greatest strength. Now, you might be picturing a leader, a chief giving orders. But the concept of leadership was very different back then. There were no rulers in the way we think of them today. No one with absolute power. Decisions were made based on experience and trust. The older members of the group, who had seen more seasons and survived more dangers, would guide the younger ones. Their authority came not from force, but from wisdom and knowledge passed down through generations. The goal was harmony, because survival depended on it. This peaceful balance, however, was fragile. It existed largely because resources were, for a time, sufficient for their small populations. When there was enough food to go around, when everyone had a share, tensions remained low. Why fight when your belly is full and your family is safe? The drive to cooperate was a practical necessity, not just a moral ideal, but even in this cooperative phase, something was changing deep within the human mind. Our brains were growing larger and more complex. Our capacity for memory was improving dramatically. We started to form deeper emotional bonds, but also more complex social dynamics. With better memory came the ability to remember effort. If you spent days crafting a perfect stone tool, you began to feel a sense of ownership over it. You remembered the labor you put in. The same went for a shelter you helped build or the food you risked your life to gather. You started to expect fairness. If you contributed, you expected your fair share. This wasn't greed, it was an emerging sense of justice. This growing sense of mine versus yours was a silent, slow-burning fuse that would eventually lead to conflict. The idea of personal property, even in its most basic form, introduced a new element into group dynamics. It was the first crack in the foundation of pure, uncomplicated cooperation. So, was life before conflict a perfect paradise? Not at all. It was tough, dangerous, and short, but it worked. The system of mutual dependence and shared resources ensured the survival and continuation of our species. It was a testament to our incredible adaptability. But what happens when that system is put under pressure? What happens when the climate changes? When food becomes scarce? Or when populations grow and groups start to bump into each other? The very things that helped us survive, our growing intelligence, our memory, our sense of fairness, would soon become the very things that would drive us apart. The shift from cooperation to conflict wasn't a sudden event. It wasn't a single moment where someone decided to be selfish. It was a gradual process, driven by changing circumstances and our own evolving nature. The seeds of conflict were sown in the soil of cooperation. Think about the first time a dispute couldn't be resolved peacefully. Maybe it was over a prized hunting ground. Maybe it was over the distribution of a meager food supply during a long winter. The trust that held the group together began to fray. The US that had been so strong started to fracture into me and you. And as tools became more sophisticated, they could be used not just for hunting animals, but for threatening or harming other humans. The same ingenuity that allowed us to master our environment could now be turned against ourselves. This was a terrifying turning point in human history. The story of early humans is not just a tale of struggle and survival. It's a story about the deep-seated duality within us. We are, at our core, a cooperative species. We are wired to connect, to help, and to build communities. Our greatest achievements have come from working together. Yet, we also carry the potential for conflict, division, and competition. Understanding this early period, this time before the first fight, is crucial. It reminds us that our cooperative nature is just as fundamental, if not more so, than our capacity for conflict. It shows us that for the vast majority of our time on this planet, working together was the key to our existence. So, as we look at the world today, with all its complexities and conflicts, it's worth remembering where we came from. We come from small bands of survivors who understood that their strength was in their unity. Before we were soldiers or citizens of nations, we were simply humans, helping each other survive another day. That cooperative spirit is still within us. It's our oldest and most powerful inheritance. The second The third topic is when instinct took control. Have you ever wondered where fighting truly began? Not the organized wars of history books, but that first raw, physical conflict between two human beings. What was that moment like? When did one person decide that violence was the answer? The story isn't about evil or malice. It's about a moment when control was lost and instinct took over. Let's journey back in time to a world before rules, before language, before civilization, to understand the instant that forever changed human interaction. Early humans were creatures of emotion long before they were creatures of logic. Think about it. Anger, fear, jealousy, these feelings weren't abstract concepts. They were powerful, hardwired survival tools. Anger prepared you to defend your territory. Fear warned you of a lurking predator. Jealousy ensured you protected your mate and offspring. These emotions were the ancient operating system of the human brain, designed for one purpose: to keep you alive. They weren't designed for peace, harmony, or polite negotiation. They were designed for action. Now, imagine the world our distant ancestors inhabited. It was a place of constant pressure. Every day was a struggle for survival. Food was scarce, shelter was temporary, and danger was everywhere. In this high-stakes environment, there was no room for hesitation. Decisions had to be made in a split second. And in those moments, the emotional, instinctive part of the brain, the limbic system, always reacted faster than the logical, thinking part, the prefrontal cortex. Thought takes time. Instinct is immediate. Let's paint a scene. Picture two early humans, perhaps living in the same small clan. They aren't enemies. They've shared hunts and huddled together for warmth. One day, after a long period of hunger, they both spot a single life-sustaining piece of fruit or a small animal caught in a thicket. This isn't just a meal. It's the difference between seeing the next sunrise and succumbing to starvation. Neither of them planned for violence. The thought of harming the other probably never crossed their minds before. But as they both reach for that same vital resource, something primal kicks in. Their hearts begin to race. Adrenaline floods their systems. Their muscles tense, preparing for action. The body's fight-or-flight response is fully engaged before the conscious mind can even process what is happening. This is the critical turning point. In a modern context, we might step back, talk it out, or try to divide the resource. But these early humans didn't have that framework. The instinct screaming inside them wasn't share or negotiate. It was survive. The drive to live was so overwhelming that it eclipsed any social bond. One of them, driven by that primal urge, doesn't just reach their lunge. Instead of a warning growl, there's a sudden, forceful shove. Instead of a display of dominance, there's a desperate grab. It wasn't an act born of a desire to dominate or inflict pain. It was an act of pure, unthinking survival. One human needed that resource, and their body did what it had to do to get it. In that split second, a line was crossed. Physical force was used to resolve a dispute, and in that moment, something profound and dangerous was discovered. The human who pushed, the one who grabbed, got the food. They survived. The other, perhaps shocked and slightly injured, was left with nothing. The lesson was immediate and unforgettable. Physical force works. It can change outcomes. It can secure resources. It can ensure your survival at the expense of someone else's. This single event, this first fight, was like a stone tossed into a still pond, with ripples that would spread throughout all of human history. It rewired our behavioral software. Before this moment, conflict was likely accidental, a byproduct of competition. After this moment, it became a strategic option. The brain is a powerful learning machine. It's exceptionally good at remembering what works. And what worked in that desperate moment was aggression. The brain logged that information. When stakes are high, force is a viable, effective tool. Suddenly, physical attributes took on a new meaning. Strength mattered more than ever. Size became an advantage. Speed could mean the difference between winning and losing a confrontation. More than that, the emotions themselves became weapons. Fear wasn't just something you felt, it was something you could inspire in others to make them back down. A display of anger could deter a rival before a fight even began. The entire dynamic of social interaction began to shift. Fighting was no longer just a panicked reaction. It was now a possibility, a strategy that could be planned and executed. Humans began to size each other up, evaluating potential threats and opportunities. The social landscape became more complex, layered with new tensions and calculations. Who is stronger? Who is faster? Who is more willing to fight? These questions became central to survival within the group. The first fight didn't just leave bruises and scratches. It left a deep psychological imprint on our species. It created a precedent. It showed that the unspoken rules of cooperation could be broken, and that breaking them could be beneficial for the individual, even if it was damaging to the group. This new knowledge spread like wildfire, not through language, but through observation and experience. Others saw it happen, or experienced it themselves, and they learned the same brutal lesson. From that point forward, conflict was woven into the fabric of human strategy. It's crucial to understand this didn't happen because humans are inherently evil or cruel. It happened because we are, at our core, survivors. The strategies that kept our ancestors alive, even the violent ones, were passed down, encoded not just in our genes but in our learned behaviors. The very brain that allows us to compose symphonies and explore the stars is the same brain that carries the ancient memory of that first, desperate struggle for survival. This legacy is still with us today. When you feel a flash of anger in traffic, or a surge of adrenaline during a heated argument, you are feeling the echo of that ancient survival instinct. Our modern world has built layers of laws, morals, and social contracts to manage these primal urges, but they are still there, deep within USC. Understanding this origin isn't an excuse for violence, but a crucial insight into our own nature. It helps us understand why conflict can be so difficult to avoid, and why controlling our emotions is one of the most important skills we can learn. The story of the first fight is the story of how our survival instincts, in a moment of desperation, gave birth to a darker side of our nature. It is a reminder that civilization is a continuous effort to rise above the very impulses that once kept us alive. The fourth topic is violence that changed behavior. Have you ever wondered why human societies are structured the way they are? Why do we have leaders, hierarchies, and rules? It might sound strange, but a big part of the answer lies in something we often try to avoid: fighting. The very first time one of our ancestors decided to settle a dispute with fists, instead of just walking away, it set in motion a chain of events that would forever change what it meant to be human. Before that moment, life was simpler. Disputes might end with one person leaving, but there wasn't a lasting memory of the conflict itself. But after that first real fight, everything was different. Suddenly, there was a winner and a loser. And more importantly, people started to remember. This act of remembering was revolutionary. It gave birth to something entirely new: reputation. Imagine a small group of early humans. One day, two individuals, let's call them Oog and Oog, have a fight over a piece of fruit. Oogie wins. From that day on, everyone in the group remembers that Ooga is strong. When Ooga walks by, others might step aside. They might offer him the best piece of meat. Didn't become wiser or a better hunter overnight, but he gained something powerful: fear. His physical strength translated into social influence. Others in the group, maybe those who weren't as strong, might start to hang around Ooga for protection. In return, they might share their food or help him with tasks. A simple fight created a new social dynamic. Became a central figure, not because of a formal vote, but because of his demonstrated ability to dominate. This was the seed of power, planted in the soil of physical conflict. As has happened again and again, the very structure of human groups began to shift. Before, groups might have been loosely organized, maybe with an elder respected for their knowledge. But now, a new type of leader emerged: the enforcer. The strongest individuals often found themselves in positions of leadership, not necessarily because they had the best ideas, but because they had the power to make others follow their decisions. If someone disagreed, the threat of physical violence was always there. Conflict, therefore, didn't just create individual reputations. It built the first ladders of social hierarchy. The strong climbed to the top, and the weak found their place at the bottom. This might seem brutal, but it was a fundamental step. It was the moment when might started to make right, laying the groundwork for the complex power structures we see throughout history, from tribal chieftains to kings and emperors. But here's where it gets really interesting. While fighting introduced this raw, brute force hierarchy, it also paradoxically forced humans to become more thoughtful and strategic. Constant fighting is exhausting and dangerous. A group where everyone is always fighting each other is a group that won't survive for long. It can't hunt effectively, it can't defend itself from predators, and it can't raise its young. The sheer cost of unchecked conflict became obvious. Humans, being the intelligent creatures they are, started to realize they needed a better way. They needed to manage this new force they had unleashed. This realization was just as important as the first fight itself. So, to avoid total chaos, groups began to develop unspoken rules. the very first social contracts. These weren't written laws, of course, but shared understandings that govern behavior. Rules like, the strongest hunter gets the first choice of the kill, but they are also responsible for leading the next hunt. Or, you don't take food from someone else's child. These rules were a direct response to the threat of conflict. They were a way to preemptively solve disputes before they could escalate into a fight. Who gets to eat first? Who decides where the group camps for the night? Who is responsible for keeping watch? The answers to these questions were no longer arbitrary. They were becoming part of a system designed to maintain order. In a way, fighting showed humans the terrifying price of disorder, and in doing so, it forced them to invent the very concept of order. This new dynamic also had a profound impact on our technology. Think about the tools our early ancestors used. A sharpened stone was great for butchering an animal or scraping a hide. But once fighting became a part of life, that same sharpened stone gained a new, darker purpose. It became a weapon. The evolution of tools was no longer just about survival in the face of nature. It was now also about survival in the face of other humans. And this led to a fascinating innovation: the development of distance weapons. Spears weren't just for hunting large animals from a safe distance anymore. They were also for threatening another human from a safe distance. The spear, the thrown rock, the bow and arrow, these weren't just tools for killing. They were tools for communication. By brandishing a weapon, you could send a clear message: stay back. This is my territory. That food is mine. You could win a conflict without ever having to engage in a physical fight. Fear became a language, and weapons were its vocabulary. This ability to threaten, to project force without necessarily using it, was a massive leap forward. It allowed for a more complex and nuanced form of social control. The strongest person in the group was no longer just the one who could win a fistfight, but the one who could command the most credible threat. Now, this all sounds pretty grim. Fighting created fear, hierarchy, and weapons. It seems like a step backward for a species that thrives on cooperation. But here's the final, ironic twist. The very same force that seemed to tear human groups apart also ended up pushing them back together, but in a new and more resilient way. To effectively manage conflict, to create and enforce these new rules, and to defend against other groups who were doing the same thing. Cooperation became more important than ever, but it was a different kind of cooperation. It wasn't the simple, instinctual cooperation of a family unit. It was a disciplined, strategic cooperation. Think about a hunting party. Before, it might have been a somewhat disorganized affair, but now, with a clear lead, those strongest or most respected fight of the hunt could become a coordinated military-style operation. The leader would direct the others, assign roles, and make strategic decisions. Everyone knew their place and their job because the hierarchy was clear. This disciplined cooperation made them far more effective, not just in hunting, but in defending their territory and resources from rivals. The group that could fight together, under a clear command structure, was the group that would survive and prosper. So, in a strange way, fighting taught us how to be a team. It forced us to develop discipline, strategy, and a shared sense of purpose. The lessons learned on the battlefield, whether it was a real fight or a tense standoff, were transferred to all other aspects of life. The first fight taught humanity a lesson it would never, ever forget. Individual conflict is dangerous, but uncontrolled, chaotic conflict is fatal to the group. From that single, foundational lesson came everything that we now recognize as society. It gave us leaders and followers. It gave us rules and laws. It gave us discipline and strategy. It transformed us from simple, loosely knit bands into complex, organized societies capable of incredible things. The shadow of that first fight stretches all the way to the present day, a constant reminder that our ability to create order is born from our potential for chaos. The fifth topic is the fight that never ended. Have you ever wondered where fighting comes from? Not just the wars we see on the news, but the arguments in our homes, the tension between strangers, the little battles we fight every single day. To understand that, we have to go back, way back, to a time before history was written, before cities were built. We have to go back to the first fight. Imagine two early humans. Maybe they were fighting over the last piece of food, a safe place to shelter, or simply out of fear of the unknown. The fight itself was brutal and quick. One won, one lost, and then it was over. The bodies separated, the immediate danger passed, but something had changed. The fight didn't truly end there. It planted a seed in the human mind, a memory That first fight was a lesson in survival. It taught a crucial, life-saving rule. Be prepared. The human brain, a remarkable organ designed for learning, recorded this event not just as a memory, but as a blueprint for the future. The experience of conflict became a permanent part of our internal software. Even when there was no predator lurking, no rival tribe on the horizon, the mind remained on high alert. It learned to anticipate threats, to see danger, not just in what was happening, but in what could happen. This was, initially, an incredible advantage. It kept our ancestors alive in a world filled with genuine perils. A rustle in the bushes wasn't just wind. It could be a predator. A stranger wasn't just a new face. They could be a competitor for scarce resources. This heightened state of alert, this constant risk assessment, helped our species survive and thrive. But like any tool used for too long, it started to change its user. Over thousands of years, this survival instinct began to evolve. The line between a real threat and a perceived one started to blur. The instinct for self-preservation slowly curdled into something else. Suspicion. Humans stopped reacting only to immediate, tangible danger. They started reacting to the mere possibility of it. An unfamiliar sound in the night. A look from someone in a different group that lasted a second too long. A new idea that challenged old beliefs. The brain, remembering the brutal lesson of that very first fight, defaulted to its prime directive. Strike before you are struck. Neutralize the potential threat before it becomes an actual one. This is how fear outlived the moment that created it. It became a ghost, haunting the human psyche, whispering warnings even in times of peace. The fight was no longer just an external event. It had moved inside, becoming a permanent resident in our minds. As societies grew and civilizations rose, the reasons for fighting became more complex. The original triggers, food, water, shelter, were still there, but they were joined by new, more abstract concepts. Now, humans fought for territory, 4 lines drawn on a map. They fought for identity, for the feeling of belonging to one group and not another. They fought for beliefs, for ideas about gods and the nature of the universe. They fought for honor and for pride. The original purpose of the fight, pure survival, was often forgotten, lost in the noise of new justifications. But the behavior, the deep-seated instinct, remained as powerful as ever. Fighting became symbolic. A physical conflict could be a way to prove strength, to enforce a social hierarchy, or to defend a way of life. We built entire cultures around the idea of the warrior, glorifying conflict in our stories, our songs, and our monuments. The echo of that first fight was everywhere, shaping our laws, our politics, and our relationships. And yet, something else was growing alongside this instinct for conflict. The same mind that learned to fight also learned something else, something quieter, but just as profound: regret. Every battle left scars, not just on the body, but on the soul. Every victory was shadowed by loss. The victor might stand on the battlefield, but they stood alone, surrounded by the cost of their triumph. This experience of loss, of empathy for the fallen, even for the enemy, began to accumulate, slowly, painfully, over countless generations. Humans began to ask a new and dangerous question. What if fighting isn't always the answer? This question didn't magically erase conflict. It didn't stop wars or end arguments, but it planted a different kind of seed. The seed of restraint, the seed of diplomacy, the seed of compassion. It was the birth of the idea that perhaps our greatest strength wasn't our ability to fight, but our ability to choose not to. This new thought created an internal struggle that defines us to this day. We are all descendants of survivors. The instinct to fight, to protect ourselves, to be suspicious of the unknown, is baked into our DNA. It's a legacy passed down from that very first moment of conflict. But we are also the descendants of thinkers, of artists, of healers, of people who looked at the wreckage of a fight and felt a pang of regret. We inherited the capacity for empathy and the desire for peace. So, the first fight never truly ended. It simply changed its form, moving from a physical struggle for survival to an internal struggle within each of us. It's the tension between fear and trust, between aggression and compassion, between the urge to strike and the wisdom to forbear. Every argument you have, every political debate you watch, every time you feel that surge of defensiveness or suspicion towards someone different, that is the echo of the first fight. It's the ancient survival instinct roaring back to life. Today, we live in a world that is safer than ever before in human history. For many of us, the primal threats of starvation and predators are gone. Yet, the ghost of that first fight remains. We see it in road rage, in online arguments with strangers, in the political polarization that divides nations. We are still reacting to perceived threats with an intensity that belongs to a much more dangerous time. Our ancient software is running on modern hardware, and the mismatch is causing sparks. But recognizing this is the first step toward changing it. Understanding that our impulse to fight comes from a deep, ancient place of fear can help us to master it. It allows us to pause, to take a breath, and to ask that dangerous question: is this fight truly necessary for my survival, or is it just an echo? The story of humanity is the story of this internal conflict, the struggle between our oldest instinct and our newest wisdom. The first fight is not just a piece of our past. It is a battle that continues inside every one of us, every single day. And the choice of whether to listen to the echo of that ancient conflict or to the quiet voice of our shared humanity is the choice that will define our future. The fight never ended. It just became our responsibility to decide how it will. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more explorations into the human experience. See you next time.